Welcome back. Just trying to survive the coronavirus here. It's me. Got to get a good gas mask, one with that filter that works on even viruses. Well, welcome back to English 201B. We are still talking about Antigone. And in this lecture, I'm going to focus on Tiresias and Creon, and also some of the themes of the play in the Greek world and its relevance to our world. We have so far seen that Antigone has gone out against Creon's decree and decided to throw dirt on Polyneices' body. It sounds like she doesn't get very far. In fact, when she is captured by the guards, they say that there was earth on the body, so it's not like she did a full burial, but she probably did anoint the body somewhat and just throw dirt on it, and the guards saw her. And here is a revolution, small revolution of Sophocles, is that he starts giving minor characters more of a role in these things. In fact, the guard who reports to Creon is full of character. He's actually almost sort of like comic relief, and if you look at his response when he comes back to talk to Creon, Creon is getting really short with him. He even says something like, "Get out of my sight before I kill you," and the guard is sort of like, "I shall be hated to report it, sire. It is your niece, Antigone." And there is some humor in that interchange. So Antigone is captured. Creon realizes that he has to execute her because he is afraid to go back on his decree, even though she is royalty. There are numerous parts in the text that show that the people are in favor of Antigone. Haman makes reference to that in his interchange with Creon, and we get that sentiment other places in the play, that Antigone, like Hamlet, is very popular with the people of Thebes, just as Hamlet is popular with the people of Elsinore, which is one of the things that keeps Claudius from killing Hamlet. But also, as for Antigone, this is going to be much harder to do. She's not just a regular person. Remember, she's a princess. She's strong-willed. Creon refers to her as crazy. He refers to her as an animal. He refers to her as a creature of passions. He's even said at points that he knew she was crazy, but now Ismene seems crazy too. Because when Antigone is caught, suddenly Ismene has this change of heart, and she wants to be punished with Antigone, but Antigone will have no part of it. Antigone has the attitude, "You didn't help me, you were not interested, you were fearful when I first approached you, so no, you can't be killed with me," which seems kind of strange to us, but Ismene wants to be included with Antigone and her family, and she's just sort of left behind in some ways. Just to recap the second half, Creon is standing fast. He is not going to give up on his decree. He has the concern that it will make him look like a weak ruler, and remember, he wants to bring order back to Thebes and give the people confidence. The problem is that the people are not happy with this decree, and he is losing credibility, ethos, as we would say in the ancient Greek, and also a rhetorical term. Throughout the play, Creon's ethos deteriorates. In other words, his credibility deteriorates as a king as he becomes more unpopular with the general public. In the meantime, we get one of the most interesting figures in classical literature, and he does appear in many places. He's in the Odyssey, he's in Oedipus the King, he's in Antigone, obviously. He even appears in T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, which was written in the early 1900s, early 20th century. Tiresias is a wise seer, and here's a little background on Tiresias. Tiresias was once walking through the Athenian fields, and he saw two snakes copulating. And as soon as he saw this, he turned into a woman. And he lived as a woman for a few years. And then one day he saw the snakes again. This is not an Antigone. I'm just giving you background on Tiresias. He saw the two snakes again and turned back into a man. As usual, Zeus and Hera were having an argument not too long after about who enjoys the physical act of love more, men or women. And so they call on Tiresias because Tiresias has been both a man and a woman. And Hera's position is that men get more pleasure out of the physical act of love. And Zeus is like, no way, women get more pleasure. So they call Tiresias, who does not want to be involved in this. There's no good outcome for Tiresias, right? And he says, yeah, women get more pleasure out of the sex act. And Hera is instantly irritated, so she claps him blind on the spot. And remember, gods can make a decree, or they can change something, particularly an immortal. And once a god does something, it cannot be reversed. But another god can add something. And what happens is, Zeus gives Tiresias the gift of prophecy and of seeing the future. And that is why Tiresias is an essential resource for Greek kings and other people when they are at a loss for what to do. Creon calls Tiresias to Thebes. Actually, Tiresias just shows up in this case. In Oedipus the King, they call him. So Creon has had dealings with Tiresias before, and he should know better. And what Tiresias tells him is that he has really messed with the natural order of things. In the ancient world, this is a really important concept. The Egyptians are like this. The Greeks are very much like this. The Romans loosened up a little bit. But in these societies, there was a natural order of the cosmos. And that was reflected in everyday life and in civilized practice of cultured societies. And remember, the Greeks regarded themselves as the most cultured society in the Mediterranean or the known world. Interestingly enough, if you are familiar with the term barbarian, that comes from an ancient Greek word, and this is a good example of the Greeks' snobbery, you might say, and that is that the term comes from Greeks characterized any other race. Their language, they said that people were just going bar, 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 bar. That's how the Greeks saw their language, and they were not speaking Greek, these barbarians, and so they just called them barbarians because that's what the Greeks thought their speech sounded like. But back to the natural order. There are certain things that must be done. And one of the things that civilized societies do, and I touched on this in my last lecture, is bury their dead and give proper rites, deserving, fitting rites. The Greeks are very much into doing things right. And you can see where the whole idea of hubris and nemesis comes from. Remember, nemesis is fitting punishment for outrageous arrogance against the gods, whatever that specific outrageous arrogance is. If you remember Arachne and her story, that's a very good example of that we get from Ovid, the Roman poet and chronicler of probably our best collection of Greek myths, come from a Roman, Ovid. And what is wrong now is that we have a body that needs to be buried that is being left out to rot. Not only, on top of that, it's a royal body. It's Polynices' body. To add to this, Creon also makes the decree. It almost seems like he's kind of afraid or hesitant or apprehensive about actually executing Antigone. So he gets sort of a wishy-washy plan that he is just going to put her in a cave and seal the entrance and leave her with a little bit of food and water. But we all know that eventually she would starve to death. To the Greeks, this situation of both siblings, Polynices and Antigone, is not just evil or in bad taste or irritating or any of those things. It is upsetting the natural order of the cosmos. dead people are supposed to be in tombs, and living people are supposed to be out in the world, above ground. And what we have here is a dead person, Polynices, rotting on the battlefield, being eaten by crows and dogs, and we get some evidence of this later in the play when Tiresias shows up. And then we have a living, vibrant young person, Antigone, who is buried alive, essentially. This would be aesthetically anathema to the Greeks. And Creon knows this, but he continues with his plan. And you can see it's sort of one of those things where he doesn't want to go too far by just hanging her or chopping her head off or that sort of thing. So he takes kind of this wimpy way out and puts her in a cave with a little food and water, and she's just going to die. And Antigone has that great line that this is going to be, her bridal chamber is going to be a tomb. And once again, this is Creon messing with the natural order of things. A bride should not be in a tomb unless they're dead. They should be celebrating their marriage rights. He is also alienating and angering his son Haman by these activities. Remember, Haman, even though he's Antigone's cousin, was her betrothed groom. And they were slated to get married very soon. And now Haman is incensed. He has very good rhetoric. When he approaches Creon, he is